So I'm going to pull over. Yikes. I'm going to pull over here in a second and so that I can be safe. But I didn't want to miss it. So thank you for
Wow.
inviting me.
Wow.
Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me.
Sorry, Holly. Sorry, everyone. We had to pause here, but
No.
this is one of our superheroes when it comes to newcomers. As long, you know, it's just like all of you guys are superheroes. I've learned so much from Dr. Carol Selva. So welcome to our meeting. And Holly, now you have the floor and share your awesomeness. Go for it.
Awesome. So is this gonna let me share? Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I haven't presented on Zoom in a long time, and also I feel like my brain just isn't working right. I'm kind of tired, I'm not gonna lie. So all right, so welcome once again, everybody. And so we're going to talk about, but will this work with language learners? And how do we do Readers and Writers Workshop with diverse students? And so I have language learners on here because that was the original title of our book, but the publishers wanted English learners because they thought that would bring in our regular ELAR, but because I'm working with my people right now, we know that we use the word the English learners, right? So let's talk. So the first thing that we're going to have as an assumption when we're working with our language learners and Readers and Writers Workshop is the importance of knowing our students. So the late and great Donald Graves, you have not read his work, it's amazing, says that you need to know 10 things about your students before you are able to teach them. And I wholeheartedly agree with this. We have to know 10 things about our students before they're going to respond to us and before we can respond to them. They need to know a little bit about you too. And this includes our beginning language learners. We got to know them. We have to know their story. And I'm going to assume that we're going to teach from an asset-based stance. All right. And that means all. All right, everybody can participate. All of our students, all of them, bring language, literacy, and lived experiences to the table that we can build upon. All right. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about Readers Workshop. So some assumptions of Readers Workshop. Just monolingual regular Readers Workshop from our pedagogy gurus like Penn and Kittle would be that students are reading in their first language, right? That language is English. The students are orally fluent in English and the students are monolingual. That's some assumptions. I'm a writing workshop person, so if you guys know National Writing Project, this is where some of this comes from, right? But that is not our students. Our students are multilingual, multicultural. They come from all over the world and they bring so much with them. So my question for myself when I was looking at this was like, how do I take all of this great workshop pedagogy and make it work with my multilingual students? And what we're going to do, we're going to have to move some things around, but it's going to work. And we're going to get the same results that monolingual students get, but more, because we're also going to get second language acquisition. So with that, so we're going to modify our Readers Workshop just a little bit. And so what we're going to do, we're going to have support. We're going to have read alouds and shared readings that we're doing together. Lots of visuals, partners and L1 discussions, choice within a theme and guidance. No baby books, and I'm going to honor one of my students, no old lady books either. Also, conferencing. We're going to check their opinion of their books and their interests, right? We need to know those things. All right. We need to know our students' reading abilities in all of their languages. So then that comes to the question, well, I don't speak Chinese, I don't speak Japanese, I don't speak Korean, I don't speak Vietnamese. I have a limited understanding of Spanish myself, but how can I do that? So there's some different ways. You can have books in students' languages available and notice if they pick them up. Do they want to read them? Use technology with a purpose and translation devices with purpose. And then there's some reading inventories. I think it's hyperlinked on here. If it's not, I can make sure I get you a copy. It's definitely, it's in the appendix of the book, but does this work with English learners? And it's also, if you just go to the Core One website, it's there as well. Oh, it's hyperlinked right here. I knew it was somewhere. Right here. And in that language survey, you can just go here and find it on the Core One website. All right. Okay, on your language survey, it's going to say their parents' language. It's going to ask for that. Languages spoken at home, previous educational experience, their language instruction in and out of school, their reading, writing, listening, and speaking abilities in each language. Because we can't assume just because a student is speaking one language that they don't have another that is their home language. Because on our home language surveys, a lot of times it will have like broad languages. So for example, it will have Spanish, but a lot of students from Central America speak an indigenous language as well as Spanish. And their first language might be an indigenous language, and we need to know that. Or for example, where I live in Louisville, that's on that 35 corridor, we have a lot of students previously, not recently, that spoke, that would check Chin or Burmese, but they were speaking a dialect that had nothing in common with Chin or Burmese. And I didn't have any idea that that even existed until they had enough English to tell me. So I've made this mistake myself and learned from it the hard way, including before iPads, students had iPads, handing a student a paper dictionary of Chin. It was in a binder, and him handing it back to me and me handing it back to him. And we were trying to communicate because I thought that was his language. He didn't have enough English to tell me that wasn't his language until 2 years later. That had nothing. He couldn't read Chin the same as he couldn't read English. And we were lost, but we got there. So that's why this is important, this language survey. It tells you so much about your students. All right, we're also going to incorporate some multilingual reading, some great websites that you can go to, Worlds of Words, East West Discovery Press, Colorado is fantastic. We Need Diverse Books, all fantastic. Also, I really love Wonderopolis. It's one of my favorite things to use. If you're not using Wonderopolis, I highly recommend it. It's free, number one, yay. And it has so many different languages on it. You have to just click on listen, which is right here. And when you click on listen, you can change the language to any language. I mean, there is Burmese on there, which is a really like small language. There's not that much, but there were so many different languages. I don't want to say them all, but there was hundreds of languages on there. So you can listen and read it in a first language. And so I've had people look at it who their first language is Burmese, or their first language is Spanish, or their first language is Korean or Vietnamese, and ask, like, is this translation good? And they were like, it's good. It's not perfect, but it's a good translation. And that's what we want. And so fantastic, Wonderopolis. Museums usually have where you can change the languages, and other cultural sites in other countries you can change the language on. And so we're going to use that to build English. We're going to go back and forth between the two. Also, book clubs are a great way to incorporate. So these are some of my students. We read The Hate You Give. Some students read in Spanish, some students read in Burmese, but some read in English, but we all talked about the book in English. And that's what's important, right? So we all had the same output as we spoke about this book. Also, having lots and lots and lots literature rich classroom. with books that represent the students in your country, their students' country, the students that are in your classroom. Then, let's see. And I love the I See the Sun series. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, because it doesn't privilegize English. It has the language, the first language on top, and then the English is at the bottom. So there's the I See the Sun Mexico, I See the Sun Myanmar, I See the Sun China, there's I See the Sun Taiwan. There's lots of different I See the Sun books, but it doesn't privilegize English. It has both, they're bilingual books, but it does not privilegize English. And I think that's really important for our students when they're coming from other countries and into our classrooms. This is an example of I See the Sun Myanmar. You can see the Burmese on top and the English is on the bottom. All right, some other great books. I love these books by Carmen Lomas Garza. She is a Texas author, so shout out to Texas, right? And they're just fantastic. It's every day things that happen in a family. This is, and I use them for students to like talk about like what's happening in the picture. And then also they'll bring in their own pictures of their family gatherings and then share what's happening in the picture in English. There's lots of ways you can use these books. This is Pasados, Las Posadas, right? Yeah, Las Posadas, yes, okay. And then this was a student's work. So she's telling me in Spanish what was happening in the picture. And then she took it to English. This is like her first day in class. All right, also student authored books. So I keep all of my students writing when they present it, and we make books at the end of the year that I give to them. It's a fantastic way to like celebrate all that they've learned and all that they've done in class. And also for them to have to look back and remember this first year, because that newcomer year, oh my gosh, right, is such a year of change and growth. I don't know if you've ever read the book Inside Out and Back Again, but I just think about the character in the book and how she talks about how her life went inside out and then it went back again. And just that year, that first year, how much students change and grow and learn. And it's something for them to look back on and to remember. Also, so I would never share this unless my students give me permission, right? So I always ask for their permission at the end of the year if I can put a copy of their work out. And I have like a big student one that has everybody's work in it. And other students are able to look back, because randomly, I don't always have a student from Brazil, right? But I might have had a student from Brazil 2 years ago. So they can look back and have a connection that somebody else from their country has experienced the same thing. So it's a way for students to make connections, even when there's not another person from their country sitting in that class right now, right? I'm not going to click on this for time's sake, but you guys will have access to my slides. This is just a statement on sustained silent reading. I'll click on it really quick so you can see. And it just talks about the importance and like what sustained silent reading is. You can use this like if your district isn't like on board with sustained silent reading for beginner language learners, or maybe they are. But this will just support you, and it's just all the research that goes and all the ways that we connect with sustained silent reading. So academic achievement, engagement, connections, second language acquisition, empathy, and global perspective. So all the research is there, and it just talks about why we are doing what we're doing, because that's really important to know the why. All right. All right, so that second language acquisition, Reader's Workshop, what that means. Now we're going to talk about how we use Reader's Workshop for second language acquisition. So this is my favorite hypothesis or pedagogy idea about second language acquisition. And I feel like once I didn't understand this until later when my co-author Mandy, I was in one of her classes and she explained this, and I was like, click, everything clicked for me, because I had heard about crashing comprehensible input, right? I knew that theory and I knew books and calc, I knew that, but I had never really heard about the threshold hypothesis. And that's when things started to make sense to me. So the threshold hypothesis is that we all have a threshold. So our newcomers, us, everybody has a threshold they have to reach, right? So you have to have so much language. And once you hit this threshold, like your language, your reading superpowers are going to kick in, right? And that's when things jump. So for example, I do not have any knowledge of Burmese at all. That's what's on here, right? None, zero. I cannot read this. I have no clue what it says. Absolutely none. But let's say I'm in a class and I have a great teacher like Miss Francis in Burma. And she's gonna build my language, and she's gonna make me feel good about the mistakes that I make so that I keep trying, and I'm gonna be reading things that she's gonna help me. She's going to do shared reading with me, and I'm gonna be working with somebody as well. And then eventually my language is gonna build, and my reading superpowers from my L1 literacy are gonna kick in. And once I hit that threshold, I'm going to be able to read some on my own, and I'm going to feel more comfortable with using language on my own. And so that threshold is always moving, of course, right? So for the next level, it's moving, but you have to hit a certain threshold before you're able to do it, right? You have to hit it. And once I understood that, I was like, oh, I understand. This makes so much sense to me. I loved it. Then let's see. So that goes back. The second one, of course, is our comprehensible input. And so when we're trying to reach that threshold with our beginner students, we're trying to get up there, we don't want to give them this right here to do on their own. No pictures, nothing, right? So I consider all of us intelligent people that are here. We've all gone to college, we all have careers, we're all intelligent people. But if you put this right here in front of us, we would all be frustrated. All of us, right? So we would need our teacher. That's the +1. So it's going to be what I can do on my own, plus what my teacher can help me to do. So my teacher is going to help me with some of these words. She's going to pronounce them. When I'm really confused, she's going to point to the word, and she's going to point to something else. And she's going to be like, this word right here, this first word, this is kite. And then she's going to have this picture of a kite. And we're going to say kite together. And I'm going to practice saying this word, kite. And then eventually I'm going to get kites. And so that's my comprehensible input. All right. So what are some ways that we can do that? We first need to know our students and their languages, because you don't know what you don't know. We're going to teach in a theme. That is my favorite thing to do. My go-to move is to teach in a theme when we're working with language learners. That's because we recycle our vocabulary, and they know the vocabulary is going to repeat, and they're building every day. Use books with limited text, lots of visuals, lots of graphics, and our annotations we're always going to do together. So this is just some possible themes, right? My computer is like super sensitive tonight. Earlier today, it wouldn't work at all. Beginning of the year, you could say like, what words do I need to know? It's like that survival. What words do I need to know for this new culture? Then they can move into describing their new culture, their family and their friends. Change makers are people who've created change around the world. I love looking at people of color, explaining why we have that day off in February for that guy, Dr. Martin Luther King, and students are like, why are we off this day? Well, they need to know. And then allowing them to like share different change makers from their country. then exploring their life and their stories and their culture, everything they bring to the table. Maybe ending the year with a novel. Yes, a novel with newcomers. Oh my gosh. Inside Out and Back Again. If you're looking at ESL 1 or ESL 2, they could do similar things, but you're going to build upon that. The We Are Readers and Writers is going to be looking at that like really specific content vocabulary that students need for ESL 1. Identity, where they're exploring who they are, what their name is, what their family is, what makes them who they are as a person. Moving into a more in-depth look at change makers, and then a novel study again with the novel Seed Folks. It's fantastic. Each chapter can stand alone, or you can do it as a whole book. So we're gonna move into Writer's Workshop. So key elements of Writer's Workshop. There's whole group, there's partner small group, and there's individual work, right? You're gonna use mentor texts, structures, and really clear expectations. All right, we need to know our students' writing abilities in all of their languages. And that moves me into this idea of translanguaging, not translating. So we want to use translation devices, Google Translate, like with a purpose, right? Because there's sometimes we need it. And I'm grateful for it because I've worked when did not have that option, right? Before that, all students had those in their hand. But we also want to use our students' first language with a purpose. And what that means is that we're going to take advantage of our students' full linguistic repertoire because they bring so much lived experience, so much language, so much literacy to the table, right? So we're going to take advantage of it. The first language is going to be used specifically by the teacher and student to acquire English. So it's not just translating because a lot of the work that we do in a newcomer class, especially at the secondary level, I know my students could do in their first language easily, right? But I want them to do it in English. So we're going to use that language though specifically. The teacher gives the way for the students to use their language. Whether it's, I want you to clarify with your partner my instructions. I want you to read this first in your language so that we all understand. And the students build upon their language to develop their second. So let me show you an example of that. So I'm going to use Wonderopolis as an example again. Students would go to Wonderopolis and they would read in their first language, right? So we're going to read this article. I tell them what they're going to read about. I want you to read about refugees. So they're going to read. Once again, I have no clue what this says. This is one of my students. He had interrupted formal education. But this was the girls. So the girl as well, she had some interrupted formal education. But she was good. She was back on track. She was really smart, really quick when she got back in school. She read, of course, in Spanish. Same article as my student read in Burmese. She wrote in her first language her notes about refugees from the article. Then she took, the second step was for her to write the key vocabulary, the key ideas from that article in English, because I had her go back and read it a second time in English. My Spanish is not perfect. I understand what she's saying here, but what I'm looking at for understanding is the vocabulary in English. And I can tell based on this, she understood this topic of refugees. So now, this is the same article by a different student. He had interrupted formal education. He listened to the article in Burmese. So he was not fluent in reading Burmese, but he could listen to it because that was a language that was spoken in his country. Listen to it in Burmese. He took his notes in his first language in Hakka. So that's what you see here. Then he took what those notes, read it in English, right? And put his vocabulary, what he thought was the important vocabulary about refugees down here. I have no clue what any of this says. He could have been calling me every name in the book, but I don't think he was, based on what he wrote down here. Country, new move country. about their nationality, religion, or an opinion. Might happen. Voluntary displace, right? And persecution. I know based off of this that he now has a greater understanding of the topic of refugees for when we're reading our novel together. And so he shared all of this with his partner here that was speaking Spanish. And so they were able to share the important words together. So different languages, different understandings, but they still got some of these words that were the same. So that's what I mean by we are translanguaging, not translating, right? We're not going to translate. So the next step would be to synthesize that learning and then share it out. And that would be something new I learned in an article about refugees is, I think it is important that we learn about refugees because, and what's great about this is these notes work across the board in any content. They can use them in biology, they can use them in algebra, they can use it in their history course or ELAR. They work across the board to help with understanding the content and as well as second language acquisition. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. When we're using writing for second language acquisition, it's going to be multimodal, right? So this is one of my favorite mentor texts to use, artists, writers, thinkers, dreamers. Fantastic, limited text, lots of pictures, famous people from all over the world. Read one of these. I use it when we study Martin Luther King. And then students create their own picture autobiography with the same ideas that are in artists, writers, thinkers, dreamers about their life. Limited text, lots of pictures with something that they're super proud to share, right? So pic collage is great, makes your work look really fancy and pretty. Canva does the same thing. Students love using it. And even if they've never used pic collage before, it takes them like 1 second to figure it out because they're so used to working with technology now, right? Loved it. Then we're going to use these ideas again because we're teaching in our theme. This is when we're looking at my life, my stories. They teach in a theme. We're going to do guided writing. So writing is always guided when we work with our beginner, intermediate language learners. This was where she wrote about her favorite memory. So I love using questions to start thinking and modeling our own writing. So this is my final, but I started with my favorite memory, talked about what happened, when it happened, who was there, why was it my favorite memory, and then how did I change? So those were my questions. I answered those and I put them together as a paragraph. They got to read about my daughter and the day she was born and how it was my favorite day. Because it was the snow apocalypse. If you were in Texas, you probably remember that when the Super Bowl almost didn't happen in 2011. And then students will do the same thing. They're going to use this planning. They saw me, and we're going to do it question by question together. Question by question. Everybody, and I'm walking around. I model my question. We're going to walk around. We're going to check and see. They're going to write their question. We're going to move on to the next one before we do our paragraph. Oh, sorry. And this is what they end up with. A paragraph of their own. This was a student that was a newcomer. She did not use Google Translate. We did this together as a class, and she wrote this full paragraph about her favorite day that she remembered. She added pictures, she used pic collage. I have several that I use, and that goes into that student book. So little paragraphs about their life, my stories. You have like 5 minutes, so I'm gonna go. And then a novel with newcomers. Oh my gosh, no way, how do you do that? I don't know. Well, we're gonna connect it to their lives. I love Inside Out and Back Again because it is a refugee experience, but the setting is the Vietnam War. So there's enough distance that it's not fully connected to our students' lives, but there is a connection because there's similar experiences, right? So it's far enough apart, but still close enough that they'd have a connection. And one way that I make that accessible, and I love doing this with students, see, will it go back, is doing sketch notes. So Laugh Back. That was like one of the titles of the little poem that's in the book. And so I will do it a couple of ways. It depends. And you can play with this and decide what works for your students. Sometimes I would have the words and they had to fill in learn, right? You can see it's underlined. That's one of the words that they were filling in. Sometimes I'll definitely have a sentence at the bottom that they're going to fill in. Sometimes they'll tell me what pictures to draw. Sometimes, right? Sometimes I'll draw the picture and they'll tell me what words go with it. Right? But we're doing it all together as a class. Like, this is not an individual thing. This is something we're doing all together. So it just depends on like the class or what we're doing with it, but definitely the sketch notes help with that understanding of what they're reading. Then these are some different frames I created for your students, for students that I've worked with. The multilingual thinking you already saw. This is right here. I love using this one when we're reading different books. In the book written by, the author explains in different details in their favorite parts. And then why should we study that topic? So it's just a little frame to show their reading. Then, all right. And you guys will have access to this, so I'll let you look at the what I learned this week, but it's the same idea. This week in world geography, or this week in English, I learned a detail from my learning is. And then this is my Twitter handle. If you want to contact me, by email. And then Dr. Stewart's as well. That's my co-author of our book. What does this work with English learners? So if you'd like to contact her, please do. And that's it. Yay! Oh, and thank you. And thank you for letting our students. This is my daughter right here. This is my sweet daughter. This is my dad. This is Peter. I taught Peter. He was one of my first newcomer students almost 10 years ago. And I still have Christmas and Thanksgiving with his family every year. And these are his two sisters that were super young when I was Peter's teacher almost 10 years ago.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. It is just so many great ideas that we can take. And I really think we need to go back, especially for those who are connecting on the phone. You need to get this link, get a hold of this link. I'll probably add the link on the email. But thank you for sharing so many great ideas. For me, the huge takeaway is that, as a language teacher, we're not teaching the book, we're not teaching the article, we're using those resources to develop the language acquisition. Mm-hmm. So the authors are kindly giving away a book for tonight. So if you will go into the chat and type in your name or say something amazing about Holly's presentation, I'm going to download the chat and we're going to draw a name out of today's participants. So whoever types something in the chat. So go ahead and put your comments in there real quick. And I would like for you to further discuss her presentation and more ideas during breakout sessions. I'm going to go ahead and share a link. I just shared it right now, which is going to get lost and all that. But it's the document that we use to take notes on our ideas. So you're going to go into breakout sessions, whether it's elementary, middle school, and high school. Please make sure someone gets a hold of this link. I'm going to share it again because everyone is saying, thank you, Holly. Thank you. Great presentation. Amazing. I'm going to go ahead and open the break rooms and have you select where you want to go. And Holly, I guess you go wherever you think you can support teachers, maybe middle school, high school, if you would. But you choose. So I'm going to open the break rooms and have you choose where you want to go.
I'm going to go to high school. And if you guys have any questions, join me in high school.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and choose where you want to go. And if you can't get a hold of the link to help us type in the resources on that, that sheet, let me know. Or if you cannot get into a break room, last time we had trouble with some of you trying to get into a break room, but it looks like a lot of you already going in there. So thank you so much. Some of them are sending private messages. This is so wonderful. Thank you so much. They feel so validated. I guess some of us, as second language acquisition teachers, sometimes we need to hear that too.
Yes. So my goal is always, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, is to challenge you and to validate you and to give you something that you can use tomorrow. So if I did those things, then I hit the mark.
See it in the chat. I don't know what, Bruce, you sent in a private message. I know you need to go, so go ahead and if you need to go, but thank you so much. He's the one that said that he's feels validated for this, so thank you so much. But again, if you're still in the big room, go ahead and choose a section to go to. I would like for you to chat with other teachers. Let me know. Yolanda, can you do it? Dawn, do you need help?
Yeah, I'm stuck. I see where you have the breakout room, but I can't join for some reaon.
All right, let me go one. Yeah, let me go one at a time. It happened last time too. All right, Alexandra, where do you need to go?
Please, mommy.
Alexandra?
Hi, sorry, I'm here. I'm just typing
fine.
away.
Yeah.
I have to excuse myself because I have another obligation at 8 o'clock that I have to be ready for.
Totally understand. I'm so glad.
I can't tell you all how much I appreciate this opportunity. I'm an ELL teacher up in Maine, and I'm the only EL teacher in my district. And so just to have an opportunity to listen to you all and to share is just so meaningful to me on so many levels.
I'm glad you joined us. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes. And I know you took some big chunks of good learning today because I did today too. So thank you so much.
Thank you again.
All right, Holly, do you want me to send you to high school?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go.
Awesome.
Jennifer and Dawn, where do you want to go?
Elementary, please.
Who is this? Jennifer?
Dawn. This is
All right,
Dawn.
Dawn Elementary. Okay,
Yes.
Here you go. Jennifer? Jolanda?
Emily, can you send me to elementary? I can't, I see the screen, but I can't click on anything.
Who is this? Who is this talking to me? Is this Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, Sandy Elementary, right? I had the screen
Yes.
all big and I couldn't see who was talking to me.
Oh, I see it.
Jolanda, where do you want to go, hon?
Well, let me try middle school.
Middle school? Okay. All right, Stephanie? Heather? Jamie?
I want to go to middle school. Sorry,
Okay.
I can't figure out where the link is.
All right, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, thank
Emily, I'm here. This is Stephanie. Can I go to high school, please?
Stephanie to high school. Yep, I'll send you
Thank
there.
you.
Go on. All right, so I have Heather and Jennifer left. Heather, where do you want me to assign you to? Or Jennifer?